Uh, we have 1 hour and 5 minutes, and we have total of 5 of us. 4 of us are professors who are used to speaking, and one is an ambassador, and I suppose they also speak quite a bit. So, 5 of us are here, and I'm hoping that we will allow ourselves just about 7-8 minutes to speak maybe and have some questions, because if we have 65 minutes and 5 of us, if each one of us talk for 10 minutes, that will be a bit challenging. Huh? So what I'll do is I'll not speak for 10 minutes. I'll just make some introductory remark. I have no presentation to make. And let me just throw a few questions on innovation. Let me raise some issues. A basic issue as an educationist you want to ask is, are our universities doing better with respect to time? Are we providing a better environment for our faculty, our students? Are we producing better graduates? Are we adding more value to them than what we did 20 years back, 10 years back? Are we able to create a more and more engaging environment? The time that the faculty and the students think about the university, get engaged with the university, if there is a way you can define coefficient of engagement that the faculty and the students have with the university, can we say whether that is improving with time, right? To me, these are the fundamental issues that you need to look at when you think of innovation. Now, if you want to break this down into 2 or 3 broad categories, the thought that comes to my mind is that one could be teaching, curriculum, handling of students, student affairs, totally student-centric. And the second aspect could be governance and the faculty-centric. How do you deal with the university? How do you deal with the faculty affairs? Now, we have some challenges in a university compared to government, compared to corporates. Our universities are somewhat different animals. I have said at times that I don't go to a police officer and tell him how to do policing. I don't tell a corporate person how to sell his cola or his computers, because I have not done those things. I don't go to a government officer and tell him how to govern. But all of these guys come and tell me how to run the university, because they all have gone to university and they think that they know the university and they know how to run the university. And yet, I beg to say that, look, university is a very different animal. What works in corporate doesn't work in university. Let me think about a few issues that come in. The universities, if you really are a good university, if you are not a school, if you are not a pathshala, then you are a very flat structure. You don't have a headmaster who is ordering the people around. The chief executive, the director, the vice chancellor, whatever you call it, is really a consensus builder. He's really the leader of a group, but then that whole group is empowered group. And what that means is that unlike the corporates, we cannot have a top-down changes. We cannot one day issue a fatwa and say this is what will happen from tomorrow onwards. It doesn't work in universities. Second, the universities work without a bottom line. In a corporate sector, you can see how much is the profit this year, how much is the profit last year, and therefore the CEO didn't do a great job. In universities, you will never know for next 10, 20 years all the damage that I might do as a director or a vice chancellor. It's very difficult to assess the performance in a university administration. Also, the universities work on a system of pride. You believe, you want your teachers, your students to believe that that is really the best university you've got. There is no way you can add value to your people if they don't think that they have come to the right place, they have come to the best place. And what that means is that there is also a resistance to change anything, because what we believed in was this is how things are done, and we have done it like that for like last 10 years or 20 years. How could things be any different? And finally, the Newton's law of inertia. Anything that you want to change, there is a resistance to change. Now, when you put all of that together, it is my belief, being an academic, I don't mind saying it, that we academics are perhaps most resistant to changes. We are most resistant to innovation. There are some other issues that we face. When it comes to curriculum and students, there is a natural resistance from the faculty because they are comfortable teaching a certain course in a certain manner. and somebody has been teaching that course for 20 years in a certain manner, and now you ask him to teach it in a different way. It doesn't like it. It's a lot of hard work for him. The challenge in the governance, there is a question of integrity of the leadership. And that is a very big problem, especially in a country like India. All our rules, all our regulations, all our systems are designed assuming that the chief executive is a dishonest man or woman, right? So you allow him no discretions, you create enough committees. This committee, he cannot make, the committee has to have nominee of his senate, nominee of his board, nominee of his academic council, as if then he cannot manipulate. In fact, then he is able to manipulate even more, because now he is working through a committee, not taking a decision. There are rules, there are bylaws that are written in a very rigid manner. If today in an IIT system, and I'm an IIT professor, blue-blooded IIT professor, I have been there in IIT system as a professor for 28 years. Our statutes say how we will recruit faculty. Now, if you want to deviate from it, you have to change the statutes. You have to go to the President of India, all the way up to President of India to change that procedure. And that's not always easy. And yet, sometimes you're able to innovate. Sometimes you're able to read the fine line. And I give a very simple example. When I went to IIT Gandhinagar, the new institute in Ahmedabad, I figured that the traditional way of recruiting faculty is not the best way for me. The traditional way is you meet once in a year, in chemical engineering, once in a year, physics, chemistry, every subject. So if there are 20 subjects, you meet 20 times, hold what is called a selection committee, bring experts from all over the country. These experts are members of panels that have been approved by the Senate and the council and things. And then you do a meeting, you look at all the applications that you have received in the last 1 year, and you make some offers. And by the time you have made those offers, answer, those young men and women have found other jobs. Because obviously these 20 selection committees cannot be held every 15 days. So we said, let's read the statutes carefully. And we found in the statutes a fine print written that the Board of Governors can make contract appointments without having to go through that process. And we said, okay, let's use that. So we asked the board, and board empowered us, okay, you go ahead and do an internal assessment. Let your faculty decide whom you want to make, and you can make an offer next day to that person for a period of 2 years. And everybody thought that we were going nuts. People thought that this is a new IIT, you are not going to get good faculty, and whosoever you are getting, you are not making him a regular offer, you are making him a 2-year contract offer, who is going to join you? And we said, no, I think that will work. And we actually found that it is working beautifully. We are today recruiting people from Harvard and Berkeley and Chicago and some of the best universities we are able to recruit. Because somebody comes to us, says, I'm interested in a job, we evaluate him, and in a week's time, we give him an appointment letter. Wonderful. It works beautifully. So sometimes you are able to read the fine print and you are able to do it, but quite often you do have a challenge of rules and bylaws that are written, quite often assuming that everybody is dishonest. And quite often we actually are dishonest. Quite often we do indulge in favoritism, looking at people, whether they are from my language, they are from my district, they are from my discipline sometimes. If you are from my discipline, I would like to favor you compared to somebody else who is from another discipline. And of course, of late, there is an additional component called right to information and the court cases. I recently had a situation where 3 vice chancellors of eminent universities in India happened to visit me in my office. And I said, what is happening? You guys are in Ahmedabad, what are you doing? Are you having a vice chancellor's conclave? They said, no, we are here in a selection committee, you know, that famous selection committee where you have to bring experts from all over the country. I said, wonderful. So what did you do? Oh, we are recruiting people in such and such discipline. How many candidates you interviewed? 85. 85 for how many candidates? Positions 5 or 6. I said, but why? Well, if we shortlist some of them, if we say we will not call you for interview, there will be a right to information problem, there will be a court case. So anybody who meets the minimum requirement, we have invited him and we have interviewed him. And after that, if we reject, there are no problems. So to my mind, these are the kind of issues that our universities, at least I would say in India, and perhaps some of these things might be common in other developing countries that are facing. Unless we handle these things, unless we create a basically good hygiene in the university system, unless we create a system of good governance, to my mind, rest of it is not going to fall in place. Rest of it, when we talk about research, when we talk about innovations, I don't think that is going to happen unless the good environment in the university is created. So these are some of my introductory comments that I thought I will share with you. And I would now request each of my panel colleagues to share what they have already thought about in terms of making a presentation here today. And if they could also throw some light on some of the points that I'm raising, that would be wonderful. So, could I start with Professor Lakshmana Prabhu? He is the director of PSNA College of Engineering Technology. Yes, please.